The new moon in Gemini happening exactly on June 14th is a time to really look at the narrative that you are telling yourself. Is it real? Does it resonate? Is it true for you? Is it really your mojo and your tojo? Is it really the mode of way of going about the world that is very, resonant for you? Or are you being told to limit your story, limit your tale, limit your way of being just by others around you telling you you have to believe this, you have to do this, you have to think of this and be in this sort of state of being and have these beliefs and needing to think in this certain way and learn these certain things, but you don't want to do that. You want to learn your own thing. You want to go your own way. And Gemini is a very free-spirited sign. So this new moon is going to open that up, more specifically about enjoying life and not taking life so fun. And maybe that can be your new narrative. Maybe that can be your new story. And so in this video, I'm going to be discussing the new moon in Gemini happening in 2026. This is a collective video. If you want the 12 sign video, I will do that after this video, perhaps tomorrow. I'll be doing that video discussing what the new moon in Gemini means for all 12 signs, all 12 zodiac signs, and what it may entail for you. You know, I never require myself to do 2 videos in one day, but so anyway, but if I feel like it, then I will. But tune in for that video being tomorrow. I will do the new moon in Gemini video tomorrow instead of today. So delving into this new moon, let's discuss the qualities of the new moon in Gemini. What's really going on? So this new moon is exact on June 14th at 9:56 p.m. Central Time and 10:56 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You want to adjust for your time zone if you live on Mountain Daylight Time or Pacific Daylight Time or whatever time zone you live on. I'm just listing up these 2 main focal time zones for you to really consider in your sort of way of thinking about it. So this occurs at 24 degrees and 3 minutes of Gemini. That degree is significant. I will discuss the significance of the degree later on in this episode. But so you want to look to where you have 24 degrees or around from 22 to 26 degrees of the mutable signs, Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. Those life areas will probably get activated during this time, and you want to find where 24 degrees of Gemini lies in your chart to find out what life area is going to be probably activated for you during this new moon. And if you think that is what I'm going to go over in your 12-sign horoscopes, then you are severely mistaken, because I don't do that. But I say that because, who knows, it may be personal to you. That's specific to your own chart. And I'm not saying in this area of life, look, you'll experience this. You'll experience this. You'll get a major windfall. You'll form new communications. It's like, no. But in that area of life that corresponds to 24 degrees of Gemini, you may feel a fresh new beginning, a fresh new start, a fresh new mode of communication in that area of your life that 24 degrees of Gemini corresponds to. So, now let's talk about this new moon. This new moon is a supermoon. And supermoons are known for magnifying the energy. Supermoons magnify the energy. They amp it up. They make the energy very bright and very loud in your face. That's for certain. They heighten the energy. They intensify the energy of what's going on And they sort of blow up the qualities of the given sign that the moon is in. You're thinking Gemini, very communicative, very curious, very free-spirited, very spontaneous, very intellectually communicative, curious. I think I repeated myself there. Sorry. But so supermoons blow up and amplify these qualities that whatever sign the moon is in, that is ultimately amplified in life. So right here what we have going on is we have a strong wit, very, very strong. Gemini has a very, very quick wit, very, very clever way of communicating, very, very intellectual, and also very, very funny. It's a funny sign. It's very, very quick, sharp, cracks a lot of jokes, with its qualities of being humorous, with being open to fun and play. And so there's this need to, with this energy, to change things up. You're being invited at this time to really change things up. If they've gotten stagnant in your life, if circumstances are just like, man, there's not a whole lot of fun and play to this. There's not a whole lot of variety to this. There's not a whole lot of spark to this. There's not a whole lot of interesting qualities going on with this, then that may need changing if it's stagnant, dull, or boring. Because Gemini wants to change up those stagnant, dull, or boring circumstances. It wants to make it fun. It wants to make it very, very light-filled. So being invited to take these circumstances, which are keeping you small in your life, keeping you from growing, keeping you from expanding, keeping you from really, really living out your biggest and best life, and experiencing joy in your life. Because when we change things up and when we have new experiences and we add variety to our lives, we gain more joy in our lives. More joy comes into our life. We experience more fun and play and pleasure come into our life. So, if the circumstance has gotten boring, and it's kind of like, it's not very fun and exciting, then it's time to switch things up a little bit. It's time to be open to others. You really, really open your mind. Be open to others' ideas. Intellectually connect with them. Bond in intellectual ways. Have conversations. Exchange ideas. Exchange a word of communication. Exchange a word of care and connection with what is going on with others. Exchanging this word of communication is really, really important to keep it going. So, being open. It's really, really about being open to others. And when it comes to this, it can really, really be about being open, being open-minded. The quality of being open-minded with Gemini is unmistakable. It is an unmistakable quality of wanting to be open-minded and curious and questionable to those in your environment to see what they have to teach you, what they have to offer you, and all those kind of things like that, in order for you to keep moving. This is time to keep moving, keeping on the move, be mobile, Gemini is a very, very mobile sign. Gemini is a very, very restless sign. It doesn't want to stay in one place for too long. It's sort of like, I keep saying, like a butterfly, flitting around from one flower to another. It's at one flower at this moment, and the next it's at a totally different place. So, how can you really, really just keep the pace up? Keep moving. And to not stop, what you're doing. To not stop what you're doing. To really, really keep that momentum going. And to move energy. To move where you're going. To change places. To do all these kind of things with not being in one place for too long, which makes it very, very boring and dull and not so fun. It's about keeping on the move. It's really about to keep moving, to keep going, to keep changing up the energy so that you're not in the stuck, stagnant place all the time. Because Gemini wants to keep moving. Gemini wants excitement and stimulation. And it wants to also form connections with those who understand you on an intellectual level. You're forming connections with those that really, really understand you, with how you think, with your ideas, your opinions, your visions, what you have to say, what's really, really, going on, that kind of way. And for those who have similar beliefs and ideas than your own, that's the kind of thing where, for those people who have the same beliefs that you have, or those same ideas that you have, that can be very, very huge for you at this time, to be with those people and to interact with those individuals and to form connections with them. You can really, really try new things. This is a time to test the boundaries. Gemini is about testing the boundaries, trying new things that you've never done before, trying all these things that are new, that are exciting possibilities. And so Gemini wants to try going to this place, riding this bike, going to this location, doing this thing, reading this book, engaging with this person. That's new and fresh. Gemini wants to keep the energy new and fresh and going. So that's what Gemini is about. Keeping things very, very exciting and airy and buzzy and interesting. It wants to keep things interesting. So having new experiences that you've never had before, spontaneously changing things up in brand new ways, can really, really help you to have those experiences and to try new things. And so, that can be really, really huge. And so this, new moon is a nice break. It's a break from, all that we're used to doing, really. All that we're used to living and experiencing. It's about spending time with friends, spending time with your people in your, social life. It's about spending time connecting with those in your world, those in your everyday vicinity, your friends, your family, your neighbors, your siblings, to enjoy life, being present with life, focusing your attention on the present, because at the lower Gemini can be very, very scattered, and it's all different thoughts, all different opinions, and all that. With what it's doing, and it can really, really, it can really, it can really enjoy life. It can really, really make the most out of life in that way. With what it has to offer, with what life has to offer, and making the most of the present moment, making the most of what's going on right here, and right now, with life, and and having fun with life. Really, really having fun and playing with life as a game, seeing life as a game, and really, really making the most out of life, like not taking it so seriously, and enjoying those smaller moments of joy and spontaneity and freedom going on here. And so, you can invite new people in your life to enrich your life. Inviting new people in to enrich life, and make it more meaningful. Because we can really, really help each other enrich our own lives, enrich our own lifestyle. We can really, really help each other to bring more meaning, and to bring more joy, to bring more stimulation, to bring more conversations, to bring more ideas into our lives, so we can really, really expand our social circle. It's a great time to expand our social circle, expand our network of friends and siblings and people that we work with, and all these kind of people, like that. And so, you can start again. You can start again with people, in your everyday life. Starting again, with people in your everyday life that you interact with. That's really what you can start again with. Is who you can start again with. And there's this need to want to know the answers to all questions. Gemini is an inquisitive sign. It wants to ask questions. Wants to get to know why things are the way they are. Wants to know the why behind everything. Wants to know why these trees are a certain color. Why this book was written this way. Why these pencils are in a certain desk. Why the dish is made this way. Why are you substituting this ingredient? Why? In the song, where is it written by Barbara Streisand, where you are, where it's, very, very low in terms of the odds. Excuse me. In terms of, where it's written. Where it is, written with what you're thinking about, what you're doing, what you're, engaging in with life, and all the questions that come with it. And that song is about asking why. Having a mind, a question, why? Why do we even have a mind? It's a question of why things are the way they are. Why these trees are this way. Why this way? We're meant to question things. Our mind, our very self, and our very being. We are meant to question things. Okay. So, okay. So answering all the questions to life, asking questions. Sometimes Gemini can ask more questions than it can get answers. Sometimes Gemini is more focused on the question than the answer. And so can really, really go online and search these questions and research these questions, but also to to go places, to travel to new places, explore, go to all these different sites, learn all these different things, see all these different things and ask all these different questions, and talk to people to learn about things. Where you can talk to people to learn about all these different things in life, engaging with life, with the history museums, with the the scientific way of going about the world, with all these kind of things. Like, you can talk to people and ask questions and learn things. And that's what Gemini is about: being active, being actively exploring, and using your mind to ask questions and explore and understand life at a deeper level by having experiences and being open-minded and traveling and opening up your mind, speaking and doing all these Gemini-like things. So, okay, so this transit right here is, it's really, really good for stimulating your mind. Like, this is the time to stimulate your mind, to really, really get new information in there. So that's what it can be. Because Gemini wants to stimulate its mind, wants to grow, wants to feed itself new information. Gemini collects new information. It's always on the hunt for new information. And it's always hungry for new information. Hungry for all this kind of thing like that. So, this is Gemini energy. This is what the energy of Gemini really, really represents, is just this insatiable hunger for new information, with all those kind of things like that. And so it's just a stimulation for new information can be very, very huge going on here with that. So, and you could also think about embodying what you're saying and making it happen. Not just thinking of it, not just saying it, not just having it as an idea, but but really, really making it happen. Making it a reality in your life. Making it very, very clear for you that it can happen. Embodying what you say very, very easily, and then making it happen. Not just thinking it, but actually acting on it. This may be a time when you're feeling more restless and irritable, because Gemini is a sort of mutable sign. There's a restless quality to it, and there's an irritability quality to it. Gemini is a really, really irritable sign. It can be just as a restless quality, where it's always to this place and that place and going all around to different places. And it wants to constantly on the move. There's constantly this need to move the energy. Because if Gemini is not moving the energy, and Gemini is not keeping going, then where is it going to be? It's just going to be not there at all. So, being restless can be a very, very good quality for that you are moving and doing all that, but it's not the most settled quality. Like, Gemini is not the most settled sign. That's constantly need to, I've got to be free, I've got to move, I've got to engage my mind. Gemini is more in the mind level, Sagittarius is more in the, the soul level sort of thing. So, our motivation to commit to things. Our motivation to really, really focus in our attention and make things a reality and fully focus on that thing, fully put our mind and energy, attention on that thing. Maybe put on the back burner at this time. Maybe neglected at this time. That's something that we just don't really put a whole lot of focus on. Where we want to be always, like Gemini starts all these things and doesn't finish them. So Gemini is not the best at committing to these certain things. Gemini starts something, then it goes in a whole other direction. That's the nature of Gemini. Gemini tends to start all those different things and multitask and do all these different kind of things like that. That it'll lose its focus and then it falls on a banana when you're looking at your phone trying to choose a playlist for your music. That's what Gemini does. And then you fall and then you have to have your hip replaced. So, so you really, really have to keep in mind that Gemini is not an energy of commitment because it doesn't have strong values. If you are so strong in your values, then you're more likely to commit to certain things that are aligned with those values. Gemini doesn't have strong values, so it doesn't commit very, very easily. It doesn't commit to, what it's doing. It sort of goes in different directions and tries this and tries that and goes all different kind of ways like that. So, there you go with Gemini energy. And so we need to evaluate at this time, what truly helps us to feel a sense of care and belonging to each other. What helps us feel cared for. It helps us feel a sense of care, sense of connection, a sense of, because Gemini is a sign of forming meaningful connections, meaningful intellectual connections. That's what Colin Bedell wrote in his book on Gemini is forming meaningful connections, and that's what Gemini wants, what Gemini needs, and Gemini North Nodes need those community building meaningful connections where you're exchanging ideas and it's very, very open-minded and very, very accepting of those ideas and not just having to fight against ideas because others dismiss and are so defensive over your own beliefs. And so there's a sense of belonging. Gemini wants to feel a sense of community. Gemini wants to feel a sense of belonging. And so what helps us feel that sense of care is really, really important. Now, Gemini is ruled by the twins. And, the twins are dual. One twin is really, really serious. Really, really put together. Really, really focused on making the most out of life. Really, really focused on having your plans, having a list, having a schedule, focusing on your goals, teaching that class, writing that book, getting those things done, doing all those kind of things which require a lot of focus. And the other is just really, really fun, witty, and funny, and doesn't take life so seriously and all over the place, and does all those kind of things like that. So it's sort of a balance here between the earthy 3D physical world, everyday world that requires us to, the third dimension, which requires us to, work very, very hard to get things, to wake up, to do the mundane tasks, to serve, to have a purpose, to, have a helpful contribution, to to make money and all these kind of things on the third dimension. And then the spiritual realm is more of the fifth dimension. So we're separating out the third dimension from the fifth dimension here. You really have human connection through joy and through joy and connection. Joy and collaboration. We can find joy in collaborating and bonding intellectually and networking with others. So that's where a lot of our joy can stem from. We really bring greater balance of just bringing us or ourselves back into balance with doing the very, very light, doing the very, very light and fun things that aren't too serious. Doing those things that are light-filled, that are fun, that are interesting, and that are filled with joy. And not taking life so seriously. Not taking life so seriously. That's what it comes down to. With Gemini energy is just enjoying fun times, and not being so serious with responsibilities and tasks to do and details to fix and solve, whatever. So there's this need to maybe it's a good idea to read. It's a good idea to to read as a way of learning new things and stimulating your mind, doing all these kind of things because reading can really, really help you to stimulate your mind. It's really, really huge with reading is engaging in the world, getting new information. And really during this new moon, it's about writing your own story. Writing your own narrative. It's a great time for journaling. New moons are times of going inside yourselves. It's a dark sky, it's reflection. So, journal. Write down your life story. Write down all those narratives that have gotten carved out for you. And carve out this new story. Carve out this new narrative. And really, really ask yourself, is this story true for me? Or was I told this by my family, by my father, my mother, my whoever, as this is the narrative for me because they're saying it. And so this is the narrative for me. I have to follow what these people say to me as this is my story because they said it and they define me. Allowing your family and others to define you is really, really negative and not the way to go. So how can you, carve out your own narrative that is true for you? You're carving out your own story that is really, really, true for you during this time. It's really something to consider and think about. Is how can you write down a narrative that you find resonant to you, that you find very, very special to you, that you find very, very interesting to you? And you don't have to overthink these videos. I was watching one of my 12-sign horoscopes last night, and I was overthinking, my inner critic says, you better make it apply to your life, you better think about how this applies to your life. No, you don't have to. If you do, great. Just enjoy the video for the curiosity's sake. I'm asking you to be genuinely curious and interested. This is all for your curiosity, this is all for your contemplation. You don't have to think about how it applies to your life and what you're going to do and whatever you can if you want to. but just enjoy it for what it is. That's what I'm saying. So carving out your own narrative that's true for you, that's that kind of way is really, really important. Having that narrative, having that story, having that storyline, writing down your own story. Like, you get to carve out your own story. Gemini wants the freedom to learn the things that it wants to learn, its own mind narrative of what it's doing. Now, when I was reading about this new moon in Gemini, one of the things that I came across is the Sabian symbol for Gemini, 24 degrees of Gemini, which is the image of children skating on a frozen pond in a village in the wintertime. That is the Sabian symbol. And what the Sabian symbol of Gemini represents is how we can find joy and beauty and bliss and fun and play, even in harsh environments, even when the environment is really, really negative, even when it doesn't go very well, even when things don't go very well, even when the environment is super duper harsh and super negative. It's a lot of just negative events happening. Like, it's cold, you're lonely or depressed. If you feel lonely and depressed at this time, what can you do to bring yourself out of those feelings? Bring yourself into a state of openness and curiosity and enjoyment for life and passion for life. And then, we can enjoy, even the messy times, even the challenging times, even the uncomfortable times. Really, really making the most of these times that are not so positive. What can we do to bring more joy into that and find more joy in taking the blessings and the abundance of what is already around you in your immediate surroundings, in your present circumstances? I always think of Gemini as the books on your shelf, the people in your life, your community, the messages that you get to and from one person to the other, your day-to-day influx coming in of information and messages. So that's what it can really be, with that going on with the new moon. So finding joy and contentment in the present moment, what's going on right here and right now. What is really going on in the moment, in the everyday? What really goes on in the present? Make the most out of it. Life can be greatly experienced, and there's great pleasure in life. And I'm not talking about Taurus or Leo, I'm talking about Gemini. There's a playfulness to Gemini. Just a presence, just a wanting to have fun. Gemini is a genuinely curious zodiac sign. It's curious. It's just unbiased, unfeeling curiosity. Not that it lacks feeling and lacks sensitivity and lacks emotion, but Gemini can detach and be curious and be interested and ask questions and learn without the limitations of its mind or its emotional biases to hold it down or to keep it in a very, very stuck place. Very, very limited place, but just curious, open-minded. So you can get a greater sense of perspective about your life. gaining greater perspective over your life is what it can really be. With the Gemini new moon. So how can you gain this bird's eye view over your life? Seeing things from afar. Seeing things from a distance. Seeing things from a greater perspective. How can you gain perspective during this time? We think about how you can gain perspective over your life, and get out of the emotions, get out of the heaviness, get out of those difficult moments, really, and detach from our emotional dramas. What's going on emotionally for us? Of all the emotions, of all the of all those emotions that we're just so into, like all the sadness, all the anger, all the this, all the that, and move into something playful. Move into something playful and abundant and full. And you don't have to be in the emotions anymore. You don't have to be in the negative, look at, the emotions and the sadness and the anger and the this and that, and the all reactive and all, we can actually detach and just, we don't have to be in that narrative. We can be in something more fun, more playful. We can be in something playful, exciting, curious, being curious about our lives. Also, being very, very curious about our own individual lives. Having curiosity, having open-mindedness. And we can also be with those who remind us that we are not alone. That we're all interconnected. We have people to connect to. We have those who are very supportive of us, who want to bond with us, want to form connections. And so, connection is really the hallmark of this new moon. Now Mercury is slowing down its pace to go retrograde toward the end of the month on June 29th, the same day as the full moon in Capricorn. And this is a time where we're in the pre-shadow period of the Mercury retrograde, where we are looking at some themes, some lessons, experiences. We're taking note. We're note taking. We're noting, okay, this experience or this relationship or this interaction or this thought came up. So we're going to review this. We're going to do a deep dive into the unconscious. We're going to go into perspective during the Mercury retrograde time period. Okay, let's take note of that. Okay. Then, so then, but it's really time to tie up the loose ends. Slow down, tie up loose ends, even though we're just beginning the whole Mercury retrograde story. It should really be toward the end of July that we should be doing this, because Mercury goes retrograde on the 23rd of July. But in clear space, clearing the decks for new energy, for new thoughts, for new experiences, for new thinking, new communication, new interactions to come into our lives. We really, really be patient to act on new ideas and visions. I mean, can we be patient? Can we just not jump into them head first, but wait before we just act on that new idea, that new thing that we want to act upon? and really be in the unknown, being in the mystery, letting things be, instead of always having to act on every idea that we have. We can just be. Because, I mean, we're human beings, we're not human doings. We're humans being. So, being instead of just doing and acting and doing all these kind of things like that. So, this can be where we are just allowing the space to be there. Allowing the openness and the energy, the new energy to be there. And clarity will arrive when the time is right. Don't chase it down. Don't expect clarity to come when the timing is not right for it to come. It will all come in its divine timing. So you have to trust in the universal laws of divine timing. Clarity, mental clarity, knowing what we want, having clear ideas, clear visions, clear thoughts, that will come later, probably later. They'll come at the right time. Let's not try to force it to come right now and right here, but just wait. Wait until that time is right. Really waiting, really easily. Be present with life. Being present. Knowing that joy is something that is not just that we get when we climb to the top of the mountain. When we achieve a goal, we feel so accomplished and our lives are so great and so grandiose and so wonderful and so full of happiness. When we finally push through and work so hard, and now we got to that final end and felt joy at the end. Yes, it can be very good when we reach the end of the line, the end of the road, and feel joy. However, it does create a lonely and very difficult journey towards that joy, towards getting that money or getting that job or getting that project done or whatever. What about being happy now? What about enjoying the moment? What about discovering our own joy as we go through life? What about discovering joy knowing that joy is a pathway through life? Finding joy in the simple things. Finding joy in those little moments that are the journey from getting to point A to point B. Instead of being so focused on getting to the top of that hill, why do you enjoy the journey? The grass, the beautiful flowers along the way. Don't miss out on all that life has to offer with that. So, let's discuss the aspects now. The first aspect that we have going on is Mercury sextile Mars. Mercury is in Cancer, Mars is in Taurus, so sextiling each other. Sextiles are windows of opportunity, but it gives us an opportunity to wisely take action on whatever opportunity is being presented to us. So this gives really a lot of courage and willingness in our wake. It gives courage and willingness to take action on new challenges, on new intellectual challenges. The new thing that we want to try, that word that we want to think, that the zest that we want to do, that blind that we want to share. I mean, there's new challenges that can come about with the courage that it gives us is really huge. And then we really be direct and honest, because Mars is very assertive and very direct as an energy. It's about how you really, Mars says it like it is. It wants you to go out into the world and go after something with a lot of boldness and with a lot of intensity, with doing something intentionally. Mars is about doing something intentionally, especially if it's in Taurus. It is more slow and steady and purposeful. So, being direct and honest when it comes to going after the desires that you have. What are those desires that you have? I mean, I'm seriously asking you. I mean, what, desires do you have that you want to go after? What are those things that you really want? Those things that you deeply want, and things that you want to act upon. How can you go after those things? How can you act in those things and be honest with yourself about all those kind of things when it comes to going after all that? And you may feel intellectually drawn to others and very open and assertive on a social level. Maybe this assertiveness. We're just open-minded, assertive, or very intellectual. So how can you assert yourself? Like, say, I'm actively interested in this, I'm actually focused on this, I want to go in this direction. And then Venus sextile Uranus is the other aspect that I wanted to discuss, which is exact on June 15th, the next day. Spring is about fun and excitement with others on a social level. You may find that there's more fun, excitement, joy going on here with others, more fun interactions, more interesting interactions. Maybe a time when you're more interested and willing to take risks. This adds something to the energy. So taking risks and being uninhibited in your communication. Not being held back in your communication with what to say, what not to say. Gemini wants the freedom. Gemini wants to be free, curious, spontaneous, open with what it's saying. So, say whatever you want to say. Say whatever's true for you to say. Say whatever's on your mind and heart to say and get out into the world. It's about being, willing and saying it with the open-mindedness and the abundance that Gemini has, because Gemini is a very abundant sign. It's a very positive sign. Positive, looks at life in a very positive way. And being curious is really what it's about. And you can connect with new people. Meeting people, engaging with people. Meeting new people, including new friends, opening up socially. That's a great time for engaging with conversations, engaging with intellectual, the appetite for intellectual stimulation, engaging with people, engaging with ideas, and doing all those kind of things. So May, during this time, during this Gemini moon, may you carve out your own story in ways that's fun. That's not so serious. You're engaging with the world, being present with life, and really living life one step at a time. Okay, so that is the Gemini new moon collective look at this transit. Tune in for the next episode, which will be perhaps tomorrow, where I will be discussing the Gemini new moon. For really all 12 signs, what all 12 signs need to know for this upcoming Gemini moon on the 14th of June. That video is going to build off of this video, so good thing that you're seeing this video first. Tune in for that episode, and anyway, take good care, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.